Well, greetings everyone. This is Linda Cry with XLEdgeActionCoach.com, and we are with the Business Spotlight series. We love to feature business owners and business leaders in their world and learn about their companies. And today we get to hear from Jeff Tezak, and he's going to share a little bit about his company and what they're about and how we find them. So, Jeff, thank you for giving us some valuable time together today. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you again, Linda, for having me on. I appreciate it. So again, my name is Jeff Tezak. I'm a co-founder of a company called Tiiga, and we call it gut-friendly or gut health plus hydration drink mixes. What we do is we combine a fruit from Africa. So this all started, my co-founder is actually from West Africa. I met him in graduate school here in Nebraska, and we became good friends, and he introduced us to this unique fruit called the baobab fruit, which is our core ingredient. The baobab fruit grows wild throughout Africa. And it's harvested by local communities. But the most unique part about it is it's a nutrient-dense fruit that's also naturally powdered. And so a few years ago, we decided to take that fruit and combine it with other ingredients and start selling products. And so we launched in 2020, and we warehouse. This is the office within the warehouse. We warehouse in North Lincoln, off 56th Street, in a larger warehouse with another shared couple of companies, which is actually pretty awesome because you have a lot of connections from distribution standpoint, from what they're doing marketing wise, and so it's a really cool and unique experience. I also have a friend slash, I wouldn't call it business partner, but that can work out of our office that you see in the background. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on kind of where we're at.
Love it, love it. So it's fun to see business owners, entrepreneurs in their environment, right? So we get an impression when we go out and look at the website, and then when we get to actually see you in action. So working in the business and working on the business, and those are two really important functions. So let's first of all talk about working on the business and putting that hat on. Well, tell us a little bit about what that looks like for you. Do you have dedicated time on your calendar? Do you tell yourself you're putting on this different hat so you're in that mindset of planning and such? Give us some insight there.
Yeah, I think you always want to be better than you are at it. And I think the more revenue you have, the more time you can plan, ironically. I think that would be my best assessment of that. In our space, because we work with a physical product, I think you have to plan more than other products potentially, because we have 30-day, 60-day lead times for ingredients or supplies. So there's always this period of time where we have to plan out ahead from, say, just the logistics to have our product be available. But at the same time, selling season, cyclical times of selling. Originally we were really focused on a hydration-based product, and so hydration is bigger from April through October, and then it kind of settles down over Christmas. So we're kind of the opposite of Black Friday, Cyber Monday type of products. So from a planning standpoint, we look at things like that, and then in between that, it's hiring and having the help at the same time and planning all that. And so I would say for me, I try to spend most of my time on the business rather than in it. I think in our space, you can create a lot of things that can help you not have to be working in the business. So whether that's the manufacturing process. So in our space, co-packers are a big thing. So if somebody else can co-pack the product, we can work with 3PLs, which we have a warehouse here where we work with another team that is able to ship out the product. So a lot of what we do is build the tools to try to make that more simple, which we've been working on ourselves. But in general, yeah, I'd probably say it's 80-20. I think the in it would probably be the sales. So maybe 50-50, I guess. So.
Got it. Got it. Well, let's talk about that, because when you then assemble, you order product, you got cost of goods sold, and then you make a product to deliver and looking for consistency in that. So let's talk a little bit about what do you do to make sure that there's consistency in your product and product delivery?
Yeah, so I think for us, the simple part is that the type of product. So one, we use a stick pack, which is nice because generally, as long as it's not broken, we can keep the consistency there. We put it into bags. So there's a couple of different variations with the bag, say, right, where it can be either inflated or deflated, which is getting minute details, but it does matter to where it packs in a certain way. But we pretty much have case packs for everything. So that way, when it's delivered to either a customer or to a specific, we'll say, like I call it B2C customer, or say a B2B to C customer, um, they have some sort of packaging that it should go in, and so that's all specified. We try to make sure when we're packing it, generally that's where things will happen. So a lot of times companies will have the product fully manufactured and packaged at their warehouse. What we've seen is we like to have it come in components. So we have the individual stick packs and then we build out the product from there versus saying getting all, we have different SKUs, right? So a 6-pack, a 16-pack, a box size. And so if we got all that in separate, we'd be ripping them open and then switching them depending on what inventory we have. So to stay flexible, we really started to stay where it's the stick and then we build the products from there. And so the consistency there is making sure UPCs are correct, making sure that our dates are correct on the outer packaging that's matching the inner packaging. As to how you do that well, I think you just continually try to improve on that. You try one system and then you do that for a little while and then you get to the next system. The hardest one is online. To really have a good experience for the customer there that is costly. So you just kind of weigh how good is the opening of the package versus how are you going to save the customer, money, things like that are the big things that we think about.
Got it. Got it. So as you think about your growth and the strategy, you said you've been doing this business for how long?
A little over 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. So what have you learned from that perspective of standardize something then and making it better and then optimizing it or leveraging? What would be the message or something that you've learned that you could share with anybody today?
Oh, geez. So it's actually even simpler than that. It's I think at the beginning you test a lot of things, and then if you find one that works, I think you almost get rid of the rest and go all in on that until you have to move on to the next thing. So I think where we've learned and had the missteps is try to do everything, right? So we're e-commerce, we're retail, we're this, we're that, and it leaves you pretty thin if you're a small team. Whereas, say it worked and there was this very niche market that you could sell into and it made sense, or you could advertise onto online. Like it could be either place, right? Online or in retail. But like really hone in on one and then go all in on really focusing on selling to that consumer, that customer. And then it kind of everything else will start to, I think, fall in place a lot better because you really can be laser focused and you're not wasting your time on extra meetings, wasting your time on extra product lines. We did learn that pretty early. We stayed pretty consistent with a small amount of product. I know we have different SKUs, but we've really kept it small from a product amount because once you start to expand that, you start to get thin. So my biggest thing is like a focus, whatever you figure out that you can be good at, and you don't figure that out right away. I think you have to test that. That's what takes the time, and that's what like the survival period. I feel like it really is like testing the first 2 years is like, okay, that didn't work, but I didn't do too bad there. Okay, that worked okay. Let's try that again. Oh, that's starting to work. Let's go make more sales there. Okay, how do we support that? Then you support that, then does that increase the sales? So that's the biggest learnings that we've had. And so we're really trying to stay focused in specific areas. And then like there's certain things in our space that is hard, like say you find a niche area. Well, you still have to be perceived, like you said, you look at the website, like it's a real website, like it's a real company. So there's weird things that you always kind of have to ancillarily take care of that you might not have your focus on, but they have to look professional. They have to look in place, but they're not necessarily focused. And that's actually really hard to balance, to be honest.
Yeah. Testing and measuring, we call it, and learning, right? So we learn from everything and what worked well, and to be even more effective, what should we try, test and measure? You mentioned a small team. So let's talk about team. How have you grown your team and what do you look for when you're adding team members? How do you onboard them, have them capture the vision of what you're building and creating? Talk about team a little bit.
Yeah, so team, building team is hard. It's really hard. And so we try to find people that obviously have the passion for what we're trying to do, and then the execution to understand that in a small business, you either execute or you don't survive. And so really those two things are the things that we look for is people that are on board to execute at a quick pace. And then that believe in kind of what we're doing. Those are the two main things that I would say. As to actually onboarding people, we try to streamline a few different things to where technology just makes it really easy to communicate or for them to find everything and be able to utilize everything pretty quickly. So that onboarding process takes less time. So things like using 1Password, which sounds ridiculous, but I don't know if you've heard of that, but like opening up things like 1Password to people and giving them every login. So there's not an excuse that they weren't able to find something or weren't able to do something quickly is very beneficial. And then the sink or swim, I think, is actually pretty big in our space, because I feel like as in small business, you don't have the opportunity to like work into roles, right? It's like you either can figure it out or you can't, which sounds bad, but I think kind of my background of sports. It's like you get on a team and you either make it or you don't. So
Got it. So you talked about some of the relationships that you had since college, and do you still have some of those business relationships, or have you evolved into finding other business partners, or have you branched out into other business ventures? Just curious about your entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah, I mean my entire actual thing is completely different. So um I don't think I've ever I don't know how to explain this. I'm from San Diego originally, and then I've lived out here for the last 10 years, I think now. But I've always kind of wherever I've been or whatever industry it is, I just end up starting to meet the people in it. So I'm not like one that was on a 20-year trajectory of staying within pipe fitting, right? And you know every pipe fitting company and salesperson and whatever. I sold bagels. I started a bagel company when I lived in Australia at farmers markets. We started expanding farmers markets, the distribution for a bagel company. Then I got back and I coached, and then I worked in insurance. And so I've kind of done the gamut. And so now I'm in the CPG world, which is, you know, consumer packaged goods companies dealing with retail and brokers and different salespeople in that space. So you just end up starting to meet people in different networks. Um, and I think it's key just to have a Rolodex to be able to just communicate with anybody. You end up starting to connect all sorts of things. The unique space about the unique thing about the place that we're in now is consumer packaging actually probably has the most connections to everything, because you deal with manufacturing, you deal with marketing and branding, you deal with all the technology suites. So you end up having a lot of connections that end up helping other people. To be honest, I've actually helped a lot of people just by this role who need some help in some way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you look for those kinds of partnerships, so you know,
I have a very quick answer for this. Test. So, like you just said, test and what was your two lines? Test and
test and measure. Yeah, test and measure.
yep. Yeah. So, external hiring of consulting slash whatever you want to call it, right? Test. If you're any good, you'd be willing to go. You don't need a 6-month contract, right? Like that's how I look at it. You either can do the project and then we can get another project together, or we don't, or it's monthly. That's the two things that we've learned. We've been burned pretty hard elsewhere. So I almost refuse to do any long-term contracts, and I make sure that whenever we do something with somebody, they have to prove that they can do what they say that they can do, and that has to be within the first 1 or 2 projects.
Yeah. So results based. So I can pick that up about you already. It's like, let's get the results and let's celebrate together, and let's learn from it if not. And so we'll have repeat business when we do it well, and maybe we'll just agree to part ways if it's not there. So what kind of dashboard, or what kind of key performance indicators, or leading and lagging indicators, what do you track, and what's been important for you?
So it just depends on the space, and this is actually where we probably struggled the most. I would say is really being able to have the KPIs to measure. Like we have very simple KPIs. Try to keep it as simple as possible, especially when you're dealing with certain spaces. But that's actually led to how would I call this? Negative consequences by limiting the amount of key performance indicators that they had to have, and that's also burned us. So um, we really just try to have a hands-on approach with the people that we do work with, and make sure that they're hitting their target, whatever they decide over month, 2 months, 3 months, or even every week, and then just kind of go from there. And it's usually it's very unique to each space, right? Like if we're talking about like performance marketing versus design, they're very different in how you have to look at what things are done. Design's more like, did you get it done this week? Whereas performance marketing is like, what is the trend looking like over this month or these 3 months, things like that. This is still our area that we really struggle. I mean, I think every business has a really difficult time making sure to hold people accountable. So.
Yeah, and there's two sides to that equation, right? So there's do they have the capacity and the capability, which is all about clarity in their role and make sure they're training. And then do they choose? So can they do it? And do they want to do it? Are they choosing to? And to me, it's both. Both are a part of that equation. I'm curious about this idea of work-life integration for you, because you seem to be a go-getter, even hearing all the different places that you've been and things that you've done, and wanting to be results driven. So let's talk about work-life integration. What does that look like for you? What do you do for fun and to keep your energy levels going?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really like if you really want to build something. I don't think you can have full work life balance like by any means. So that I mean, that's, I think a direct result. You can try, I suppose. Like I have a family, so we just had a newborn, so he's like 10 months old now. So most of our time is spent obviously with family, just doing whatever kind of what we're doing. So turning off as much as we can to do that. But in general, no, there's not a lot. I mean, you try either the weekends or one day on the weekends or a specific time at night to kind of be done are the kind of the keys for me. As for things I like to do, it's sports or working out, things like that, because those are physical. The mental side, I like to read. I listen to a ton of podcasts and reading and stuff like that. The podcasts don't really turn you off, but they get you off of the business side a lot of times, or it's into the larger whatever you're listening to. Same thing with audibles or audiobooks, where it kind of is a completely off subject thing. So that way you're not completely ingrained within what you're doing. That seemed to have helped me the most. From reading, I actually think reading at night when you go to bed with something that's completely arbitrary is actually one of the best things. Because otherwise, you end up waking up all the time and writing stuff down, and you can't stop thinking about it. But if you can like read something that's like a completely random story, usually fictional, it really does help. That's what I've actually one of my biggest, like I would call it, business coping mechanisms, I suppose would be. Yeah.
Good, good. Yeah, I don't use the word balance either, because I think by definition it's not the place to be. Integration. So how do you fill your
I
bucket,
like
get
that.
re-energized, right? And that yes, life is important, and your business should give you life, not suck the life out of it for you, right? So and by the way, congratulations on the new baby. So
Thank
that means there's probably some sleepless nights in your world too that you managed through. That just goes with it. That goes with the territory.
you. Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
And I think where you guys come in is like there's clarity ends up being your best work life balance. Clarity and focus are the two that if you have both those, and that's a constant battle and struggle for me. And I think for our team and just in general is like getting clarity and then focus and then execute and then assess, right? And it's like if you do that, then you have your work life balance because you know what you're going to go accomplish that day, and then you move on from it and you do it again the next day.
Nice.
And I think that's been the hardest thing, and I'm still not there completely. I don't think you'll ever be there. Some people are, but I think that's where you start to feel a lot better in your balance standpoint. And then also winning also helps. If you make a huge sale,
Yeah, celebrate,
like
win. We all want to be a part of a winning
yeah,
team,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
What's one of the current challenges right now that you're facing in business that's in front of you that you're working through?
For us, it's constantly so it's unique actually. The type of product that we created didn't exist. And so what we've been selling for a while was something that combined to like another company. So there's a company in our space called Liquid IV that everyone knows now that sells a hydration drink mix like Pedialyte. And they became the kind of market leader, right? They got bought by a huge conglomerate. They sell in every store. And so we were trying to like wherever we went into a store, try to get into a store next to them. Well, that store doesn't really have a space for that type of product. It didn't exist, right? Even in the shelves. So like whatever space was available was for them. And so what's been unique right now and the challenge is that we're actually, and it's been a good thing, we've had to make an adjustment finally and make a pivot where we're focused. We had a gut health component to our product to where we become a completely gut health plus hydration type of product versus a hydration type of product with this. So what it does is it opens up a completely new area to go into. So now instead of us trying to sell in the unique part of say a Hy-Vee was like the health market, right? Well, now we're going to open up the over-the-counter space, and the over-the-counter space is all sorts of stores, all types of stores, all types of people that we can sell that to, and then it's just a really unique time where we can now talk about our products differently. And so the challenge is trying to take your messaging from one side and move it to this new product without making your company be completely confusing to the consumer. And we've been thoughtful about it, and we're getting closer to where it should be a pretty quick, like once all the new packaging and everything else is in place, that just kind of comes in. But in that meantime, you're in this weird limbo of like switching where people will view you as this one thing and then you're trying to become this other one. And then streamlining our processes as well is always a constant battle.
Yeah, it is. It is learning every day and mid-course adjusting, not necessarily correcting, because that implies that something might be wrong. Maybe it's not wrong. It's kind of like an adjustment. If you were to give advice to your younger self, and you get to decide what that is, what would be the advice that you would give your younger self? Would there be something unique that stands out?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. Like, I traveled a lot in my 20s. I played sports until I was 25, and I traveled till 30. And then I coached in baseball. So I had like until 33, I was kind of doing random things all over. The two things that I would have done different was I would have thought how to utilize those times and like during those times to create that Rolodex that you're kind of talking about, like how did this work into this? And I wouldn't say strategic, that wasn't the right term, but like you can be more strategic from a very, very young age, like especially college kids. Not full college kids is like I use CRM, Pipedrive, there's, HubSpot or whatever. But I think that every kid should be on one by the time they're like 14, because I think that you should be starting to accumulate data on everybody that you meet, not because you're some weird person that just wants a bunch of data on people and you want to sell them everything, but it's really unique when you know people's birthdays, when you know the last time you've had a conversation with them. So weirdly, I would have said to my younger self, like create some sort of Rolodex system that was in place, that was a system. And then the other thing would be organization. Like literally, we were just watching David Beckham's documentary, and the guy is the most organized, like color coded, hangers. Everything's folded a specific way. Just being extra hard on yourself to be very disciplined with the little things, I think exponentiates everything else. And so those are my two, like really focus on that and then that.
Nice, nice. I like it a lot. Beautiful. Well, it's been fun. Lots of insight, lots of wisdom, real people doing real work, getting real results and filling a need. I think people are more mindful about what they're starting to consume these days from a nutrition perspective and all the other side effects from other choices that they might make. So that's exciting. How do we find you? Do we find you out there in places and spaces that we shop, or we find you online e-commerce? What's the best way to learn more about you?
Yeah, so we're on it's on Amazon. This is usually generally people want to know first. So we're on Amazon. Our website is drinktiiga.com. It's pretty simple. Tiiga is with two I's, so Tiiga. In Nebraska, we're in most of the Hy-Vees. In Lincoln, Omaha, not really like Grand Island area, things like that. And then we're also like No Name Nutrition, some of those type of stores. And then we're kind of randomly sporadic throughout the rest of the country. If I forget a couple stores. Wine, beer, and spirits, ironically. Hydration works really well with alcohol drinkers. It's a recovery. So, but generally, yeah, if you need to find information about us, we have a store locator on our website as well for the stores that we do go into.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, again, thank you for your time, your investment. It's been a pleasure to learn more about you, and just wishing you the best as you continue to help the world become more healthy.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate the time. Thank you.